Right. So the Carney government wants to buy half the existing inventory that nobody wants to buy from existing developers in order to create more affordable housing as well as take this inventory off the developer hands. The government wants to spend billions of dollars buying around half the existing 4,400 unsold condos sitting around Metro Vancouver. And quite honestly, it sounds kind of crazy if you're thinking about it. There's obviously some good that comes from it, but at the same time, one of the ways that I see it is part of the reason that we're in this mess is because the Trudeau government decided it was a good idea to lower interest rates to pretty much nothing and then print loads of money, and then whether inflation was going to come about, they said it wasn't. Fast forward the next few years, prices went up and everybody got punch drunk off the free money, started borrowing as much of it as they could, started selling and pre-selling units as fast as they could for higher and higher prices, and then taking on more and more debt on these sites in order to complete on them. And then the government realized it was a mistake offering and keeping rates that low for that long, and inflation was a real thing. So they increased them at a rate that we've never seen, which caused the whole thing to come to a screeching halt, with all these projects not being as feasible, with the demand for these being outstripped by the supply and the amount that was built. And we find ourselves in the situation that we're in. So you could say the government played a hand and that it is their responsibility to take us out. And then on the other hand, you could also say that this is the boom and bust yin and yang cycle of things, that when things go up, that much over the course of 2 to 3 years, that's unsustainable. And there needs to be a night to this day and a time for the trees and the dead wood in the forest to be cleared out, and for things to kind of have this pullback period until eventually everybody forgets, and then you get to the same thing again, right? And then that cycle's been going on for decades, and having the government try to intervene and mess with these market dynamics could cause things to go crazier and crazier, right? So if you view it from the perspective of they caused it and it's their responsibility to take us out, then you could justify it. But if you view it from the perspective of, well, you're just incentivizing people now to go crazy, borrow as much as they can in time when times are good, and if things go south, that the government's going to bail you out from all this unsold inventory, right? Because technically, we as the taxpayers are the ones that are buying these units, and part of the reason these 4,000 plus units are sitting vacant is because nobody wants to pay the price for the quality of unit that they've built. So if nobody wants them at the current price, then the price should come down. So the marketplace gets the quote unquote discount. And then that incentivizes people to act differently in the future, right? That's one way of looking at it. And by having the government come and buy half of these units, you risk flipping things in the opposite direction and kind of messing with that cycle. Because in the press release, they were saying that otherwise these units sit vacant for years. Well, why are they sitting vacant? Because nobody wants them. Why does nobody want them? Because A, the price is too high, or B, the units aren't attractive, or 3, the combination of the first two, right? So if that's the case, then shouldn't we let the marketplace and capitalism do its thing? Then for the other side of the coin, there's an element of the government being intertwined in Canadian real estate, particularly for provinces like British Columbia that are heavily reliant on it to generate revenues, could actually benefit from it in a very tangible way, in the sense that the people that purchase these pre-sales, who otherwise have to watch developers be forced to offload these at lower and lower prices, can affect their appraisal values, refinancing details, household wealth and equity, as well as have the capital that's tied up to these projects not be deployed in a way that could bring more housing about in a time where nobody's really building anything because they're stuck on existing inventory. It could also provide more rental housing to people at better rates because now there's more units available for rent, in addition to the government incentives for the CMHC programs that incentivize more rental housing being built as well. So you get more affordable housing and perhaps less ownership, unless, depending on the information they release in fall, whether this offers an opportunity for people to also buy these units we'll have to see. But another element of this is part of the reason that people don't want this is because the price is high. Looking at these numbers in the areas that they're saying they're going to buy them, if you look at Richmond and Burnaby, Surrey, where a lot of these units are, a lot of these are 1,000 plus a foot and luxury style units, right? So the government's going to be buying these at that price. I mean, I don't give them a whole lot of credit in terms of being smart enough to negotiate a bulk discount deal. More likely, they're going to lean on the fact that they have lower interest rates and access to them to justify higher purchase prices, right? So as more information comes out, we'll see. But if anything, I think the lesson here is, as shitty as it is to say, that it's somewhat of a rigged game in the sense that the government is so reliant on it and it's a sort of too big to fail thing. So when those two become intertwined, is it just like a matter of time thing before the government intervenes in these kind of scenarios? Because that's what seems to be happening over and over again, which creates the too big to fail. And no matter what happens, the Canadian government's going to kind of rig it in the favor of the people who are keeping them in power, which is the homeowners and the people that are well entrenched in their advanced government seats, right? And who are directly or indirectly tied to real estate. Their voting bases, basically the baby boomers, profited massively from the influx in the price of Canadian housing. They fund and vote for and like the existing structure and power dynamics. So do the people that are in power. So they're going to kind of continue to fight to push these agendas forward, right? So that's where that thesis starts to look stronger and stronger, is where every time things start to go south too fast, the government steps up. And to be fair, maybe that's just what they have to do now, right? So the benefits of this are those thousands of units, people get to live in them at rates that are hopefully more affordable. The developers get to free up more cash. And right now, there's not a lot of new housing starts, but perhaps the government should create a structure whereby, with them agreeing to purchase these units, the capital that is returned to the developers has to be deployed in order to create more housing. Because otherwise, there's no incentive for them to keep the money in an area where they were losing it. In fact, I wonder if they could just take the money and just, use it for disbursements or other investment instruments to generate returns and just not build anything, right? So this really only works if the money goes back into the developer hands in a way that they have to continue to build more housing, so that we're not stuck in a scenario where they decide not to build. You just sit on the money after dumping their inventory, and then we get in a scenario where we're in a supply crunch again, which has pretty much just been the pattern, where boom and bust. We either have too much inventory or we have too little. And this is unique to condos more so than anything else, of course, as a lot of this new inventory, or pretty much all of it, is just condos, right? Reconciling the fact that they're dumping taxpayer dollars on inventory that nobody wants, but at the same time they kind of caused the scenario to come about. It's kind of like a mixed bag of emotions for a majority of people, I'd imagine. I don't know, from my perspective anyways, it's kind of like it feels dirty that they're using taxpayer dollars to do the bailout, but at the same time they're inextricably linked, the government and their policies, in terms of what caused the scenarios to come about, right? Like, I still remember that Trudeau speech where a reporter asked, maybe I'll find the clip, but a reporter asked, isn't there going to be inflation? No, don't worry about it. There won't be inflation. And then fast forward, there's like 20 offers on a listing and it's going like 400,000 above asking, right? And it's like, oh, that was a direct result of these guys printing that much and giving that much free money. So in fact, it is their fault. And then them increasing rates that fast caused this to come about. So it's like, but then is the answer just to screw the taxpayers over and over again? And will this just make things worse as well? will, because the immediate things are kind of obvious. People get more access to housing if they can structure it where the developers are required to create more housing starts with the money the government bills them out with. Then it could create even more housing. But if they do it wrong, or there's unintended things that happen, it could just be a situation where things just get worse, right? In a way that we don't immediately see right now. So I guess time will tell, but I'll be here to report on any changes that they announce regarding how they're going to do this in the fall.